Hello and welcome to the Bee Formless Flow Driven CEO podcast. Wow, I have an exceptional person on the show today. I won't say this morning because Geoff Matthews is a digital nomad, but currently living in Auckland where it is past the morning. So, welcome to the show, Geoff.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me, B.
No,
I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
I know. We've just been talking pre-show, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't even know. I'm going to let you give your whole story because you are young old, is what I would say, with like a wealth
Yeah,
of experience where you've had a career and continue to have a career that spanned energy, engineering, organizational design, marketing and communications, politics. You have a company that is making huge impact in sustainability, which is called SIM-PAC Live, and we'll talk about that. But then on the side of that, you're also an ex world Ironman triathlete, and you were still pro until 55. And I think you said you were one of the top 15 in the world, which
yeah,
which is
yeah.
pretty incredible
Back in the day, B.
back in the day. And what else can I say about you? I think that what I love and what we've already just connected on is that you bring this real human energy or what I call soulful, like vibrance
Yes.
about you to everything you do and everyone you interact with. So as scary as it might seem that you you were the personal secretary to in politics. I can't remember what you just said
The,
before.
the Prime Minister, yeah, I was personal secretary of the Prime
A
Minister for
minister.
10 years.
That's kind of
I,
scary in terms
I
of
went
the
in a young man and I come out an old man.
yeah, totally right. But I just love your soulful kind of, and that's just my language. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
and we've got a lot to talk about in flow state as well. So I'm going to hand it over to you. Tell
S-
us, tell
uh,
us your journey, and we can go
yeah.
there. And
Well, I just pick up on something you said about the human element first, and this is really important for where we are today, especially with AI coming on, is that and in sustainability, I've found that this is the number one statement. And I think I gave this in a speech in Milan a few years ago. And I said, technology enables the solution, but only people solve the problem.
mm,
And that's where we are today. And it's why I think people like you, B, with your business, is we're going to need to retain that human element because people solve problems.
mm,
Technology only enables the solution.
mm,
And there are lots, especially when it comes to decarbonisation, there is lots of technology available today that could dramatically reduce our carbon footprint. And why don't we do it? Because our behaviours are such that we're just imprinted that we just want to do what we've done, and some of us want to deny that that problems exist. So that's the one thing, and that people element also probably runs all the way through my career. And so if you're looking at, oh God, this guy's been all over the place, it's probably when I was in politics, 10 years in the personal secretary of Prime Minister. Essentially, if you wanted to complain to the Prime Minister in New Zealand, you rang up and you got me, and I would answer the call. So every day I was dealing with calls from real people all over the country, from people not being access benefits to international tax regimes to everything you can imagine across the entire spectrum. I got quite a broad knowledge of, because I would have to talk to the people about it. And what it gave me was, as I said, I started at quite a young age. I was 25 when I went in there, and it gave me a perspective about being in people's shoes
mm,
and looking through their eyes and understanding a problem. Because one of the many things that happens is that the politicians create a law and they say, oh, the law's going to do this. And then how it actually affects people is totally against what we didn't mean it like that. Well, it's what you just wrote because the law's written like that, and how it affected people. And so I had this innate sense of people. And so after there was a coup, and a bloodless coup. You know what that is in Australia, and we got kicked out on the street after 10 years. The keys and the swipe card were taken off me, and out you
Oh
go.
gosh, yeah, I
It
can
was like, oh,
imagine.
my home's gone, and I found myself, and I went back to university, did a marketing degree, specialised in branding, which was a new subject back then. And it even took me about 18 months to work out, why branding in politics. It was my intuition of people and their
Mm.
perspectives. And then ran that for a long period, very successful, 5 New Zealand Marketing Awards, runner-up as Market of the Year twice. And then I found that people would bring me in to say, we need help with marketing. And I'd look at their business and go, you don't need marketing. If you've got any more customers, you'll just fall over. You've got to fix your internal processes.
I love it.
And
That's exactly what I'm all about. Like,
and 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 so I ended up sort of doing more business consultancy.
mm,
And then I had people bring me fledgling ideas, and I knew they didn't have the wherewithal to take these ideas. And so I started commercializing some of the ideas that were brought in front of me. And the first one went really big. It was an internet startup. It was the first online tax refund company in New Zealand, and it went huge. I mean, at one period we were adding 20,000 new customers a day.
wow.
And and then I sold that and did a few other things. And then I got offered a bit of tech that could have changed the world of aluminium smelting if it had been implemented. And aluminium smelters are big. Okay. At the time, there were only 200 of them in the world, and they use the same amount of power as 1.2 billion people. Just think about it: 200 businesses using the same amount of power as 1.2
Yeah,
billion
it's
people.
huge.
And so, I found myself talking about the renewable energy that was going to come. This was 2016. And why we needed to be flexible in our operations, and how aluminium smelting could actually provide that flexibility to the grid and interface with renewable energy grids. And I went and I spoke all over the world, literally all over the world. I think I traveled to like 32 countries or something in total in that span, and become, maybe by accident, it was only me talking about it, I've become the world's leading expert on this stuff, and ended up being an author on a whole lot of scientific papers, because all the scientists, they like writing papers with me because I could do the hard yards and translate it into
Well,
something
yeah,
that
into
people could
story.
understand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Like, and
So
yeah, I'm listening here, right? And I'm going to pause for a second, because it's almost like you've started here, you've shaped that, like you've started in politics, and then you're kind of moving and you're reshaping, but it's all interconnecting in terms of how
yeah.
you're moving to your next
Oh
form,
yeah, yeah.
if you like,
There were a whole lot of successive businesses actually that I took on a problem that if I enabled a solution, it would change the world, or the world of that particular one. There was one. I was CEO of Blue 70 Swimming, and Blue 70 was a triathlon wetsuit company. I jumped in for a client of mine. I got the first super suit. You know, the black suits they wore in the Olympics at one stage in the swimming pool? I got the first super suit approved by FINA in Switzerland. I went up to Fit Switzerland, got it approved. And I was in the middle of these swimsuit wars. And I knew that the moment they approved it, it was going to change the world of swimming. So, and with the tax refunds, we changed the world of tax refunds. Eventually, the IRD in New Zealand had to do it themselves. It was we'd done something like, we did 1.5 million tax refunds in the first 9 months. It was like we were bigger than the inland revenue in tax refunds. So they had to change the system, and they do it automatically now. But so yes, I've had these successive big challenges, and then along came COVID, lockdown in New Zealand, couldn't travel internationally. And my son said to me, he made a comment that he wasn't going to have kids. And I mean, what do you mean you're not going to have kids? And he said, well, it would be cruel to just bring them into the world when the planet's burning. And at the time,
How old
Australia
is he?
and
Sorry.
he said it'd be cruel to bring them into the world when the planet's burning. And Australia and California were on fire at the time.
Mm.
Okay, really. And I said to him, well, Tom, the next speech I had to give was in Brussels, and it was at a sustainability conference in Brussels. And I said, come up to Brussels with me and I'll show you. There's thousands of people around the world doing things. Every day there's new stuff being invented. And you just don't see it because your feed for a 19-year-old boy
He's 19.
showing doom and gloom. So, but on the way up, and I don't know how this happened because we were sitting on the couch together watching the news, and I swear I've never watched the news in my life with my son before, and Greta Thunberg was on, and Greta had been protesting at a G20 or a G7 or something, and Greta comes on and she says, "Oh, it's just blah blah blah, it's just blah blah blah. You've got these conferences in 2050, that 2000, it's blah blah blah," and my son looks at me, and I go, "It is, Tom." I said, "I've spoken at these international conferences. I've been to these international conferences, and it's blah, blah, blah." So he just looked at me and said, "What are you going to do about it?" And so, the challenge was on. And then when we went up to this conference in Brussels, and the second speaker in was like, I think she was the Commissioner for Climate Change for the EU, one of the most powerful women in Europe. And she's speaking away, and I wrote in my book, and I showed my son sitting next to me, and it was blah blah blah, and what it was is that she was telling all of the people in the room why they needed to do something, and it was hang on, we're all in the room because we're trying to do something,
Yeah, it's
and
that
you just
lecturing, isn't it? It's a lecturing.
yeah,
Like,
and you're just
yeah,
lecturing, and that's not helping.
no.
So I came back to Down Under, and I decided that if I could try and create an event series that had no blah blah blah, and was about solutions, and could tell the stories of all of these people doing this amazing stuff across the entire supply chain. And that's why I started SIM-PAC Live, and we ran events in a number of places. We've still got a number of events running this year. But what I found was a lot of these people couldn't get traction in the marketplace. Great products. They had product passports. They could prove the CO2 savings of things. They'd done everything right, and they weren't getting the business. And it's because they would talk to a big company in a sustainability office, and that big company would go, "Oh, yeah, great. Go and see procurement." And procurement were not interested in talking to them because they'd been doing the same thing for 10 years with the same supplier, and why would they make their day harder? So I started my YouTube channel and SIM-PAC Live, and I started interviewing people and trying to give them a third-party endorsement by giving a news type interview. And so not just a patsy interview or a friendly chat, I would ask them hard questions, and they then could use that video to help tell their story, put it on their websites. The other suppliers would look at it, and through ours. And what I'm finding is that it's conferences are quite clunky, and they're hard to run, they're expensive to run, and they're these clunky, slow things, and we need to move faster. And so going back to the core essence of what I wanted to do, I didn't set out to run conferences. I set out to tell people stories. Yeah. And so that's how I've sort of ended up, doing what I'm doing with my YouTube channel. And I think I'm carving out quite a niche. There's no one else doing quite like I'm doing. And and it's great. And it's telling these stories. And because it's useful marketing, you can charge for it. And that, because if you don't charge for it, you go, you're out of money, and then you're not doing stuff. So so we they're professionally edited, they're great interviews, and also I'm using my very large LinkedIn database of sustainability experts across Australia. And I can, when I do these events, I set them up as an event, and I can invite up to 1,000 people from my database at a time, and they can invite 1,000 from theirs. So it seems to be working. It is working really great. And
awesome,
and I've got a queue of people waiting. I've got them stacked up because I can only do one a week.
I love it. So is it almost like, just so I'm crystal clear, like from a marketing sense, like you interview people, but they're
Yes.
they're selling's the wrong word, but they're talking about their product
Yes,
in sustainability or decarbonisation.
yes.
And it's a way of them also then being able to.
Uh, I'll give you a good example because it went out last week. I interviewed a company, Vortex, and VAWT, and that stands for vertical axis wind turbines. And this company in South Australia has got some new tech to commercialize a vertical axis wind turbine. For anyone that's wondering, a vertical axis turbine spins like this. It's like a sculpture. You might have seen a wind sculpture. It's turning around. Where a horizontal axis is a big fan, okay? And we originally had vertical axis 2,000 years ago. 2,000 years ago, we were milling grain in Persia with vertical axis wind turbines. And so come all the way to the 1900s and the 1970s, in fact, where we get the first oil shock, and people start to look at alternative sources of energy, and they start to look at wind power. Now, the horizontal ones, the big fans, they got to work quite well. They were quite simple technology, and they could build them and get them. The vertical ones kept breaking a bit and were a little bit harder, and they couldn't get them to self-start. There were some technical issues. But you've got to remember back in the 70s, we didn't have material science, and we didn't have computerization to design aerodynamics and things. So vertical axis never took off. And how we got more efficient with the big horizontal ones, you see, they just built them bigger, okay? To the point they're massive and nobody wants them. They sort of want them somewhere out there. And we've got offshore wind and stuff, which is supplying a lot of energy, and we need more of it in Australia. But a vertical axis one, because they're aesthetically really interesting to look at, they've got this forever spiral. They look like a DNA helix, and they don't absorb so much space, so much kinder on wildlife and things. If you can make them work, which we can now with new material science and better aerodynamics, and make them efficient, there's no reason they can't be installed in like urban area environments or in different environments where we wouldn't have a big fan. So that company in South Australia, they need to raise money, they need to get to the next station development, and they need to put themselves on the horizon of all the wind power people in Australia. So I did the interview, and I asked them, straight up, we haven't got wind power, vertical access to work in the past. Why is your design going to do it better? And then he could put forward his case for it, and then let the people decide and for the applications. And just that interview then unlocks that, we now know there's this piece of technology in Australia and South Australia. We know it's really interesting. It might hopefully shake them loose some investors. And then I could send that out through my network, and I think I've got 630 people in wind power in Australia in my LinkedIn network. And so I sent the invite out to Australia wide, and then we had the interview, and then it's still sitting on YouTube, and every day there's more people watching it.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love the way you're doing this. I'm taking note, like in terms of it's very cool. It's very cool.
Yeah.
SIM-PAC, the name. How did you come up with the name SIM-PAC?
It stood for Sustainable Industrial Manufacturing Asia Pacific, with a silent A. And could I have thought of a better name? Possibly, but it's got it now, and so it's taken a life of its own. I mean, any brand does, but that's what it stood for. It stood for something in the beginning. But but if you if you get your brand out there enough, as a brand person, I'm always pushing the brand. So I had to do some explaining at the start, but then it's got its own life as SIM-PAC.
Yeah, I like it. No. I'm always curious. Probably like you, when you see a brand or you see a name, you're like, what was behind that? How did you come up with that? Well, what is, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of always something, the brandiness.
And the live bit I had from the start was because a lot of these conferences these days, the speakers want to beam in, and I didn't want people out of the room. I thought that defeated the purpose. but I also from the start had the inkling that I was going to do live interviews, and so I had it in the back of my mind. So yeah.
Oh, it's so very cool. It's so very cool. But then, so then you've got this whole career, if you like, going on, and it's continuing to shape and reshape, and like, it's kind of, yeah, it's like it's fascinating the way it's, like I said, it's interconnected, but it's also like, I'm going here now, or we're doing this sort of thing, right? But then you're also an Ironman world triathlete, so
Yeah.
there's,
Yes, I did Ironman in the 90s when they had a World Series, and I was ranked in the top 15 in the World Series in the early 90s. At the time, I was personal secretary to the Prime Minister,
that's what I'm trying to connect life
and so I mean, possibly I was the best amateur in the world at that stage. I was up there with the pros, and and finishing the top 10 of Ironman events when I was working 60 to 80 hours a week. So I look back on what I did back then, and I can't believe I did it. In fact, I look back at it and I don't think, I didn't think that was humanly possible for anyone to do it, and yet I did it. So and they were great years, but there was a period there I never went out for dinner for 2 years, other than when I had to go to the dinner with the Prime Minister. So and I was married at the time, and I just trained, and every night, and weekends I'd be training 10-hour days both days on the weekend, and then going back to work on a Monday. But you got so fit, you didn't notice things. I remember once I came home at midnight, because Parliament sits till late. So I came home at midnight, and it was in Wellington, which is notorious bad weather, and there was a big full moon out, and it was dead still, and the harbour in Wellington was like glass.
yeah, beautiful.
And so I put on my running shoes, and I ran a full marathon around the bays, and around the outer bays there's no traffic lights, so it's just dark. You're just running under the moonlight, and so I ran a full marathon. Maybe a little bit more, clocked about sort of 3:30 or something. Back from start to finish back home, and then went to work at 8:30 the next morning. And other people would say, "Oh, did you have a late night?" And I thought, "Oh, did you see the moon?" I went out and ran it. I ran a marathon when I got home. People would just look at me as if I was absolutely nuts. And but anyway, you still carry those memories through.
Yeah, you do. And I relate, because I'm that sort of a person as well. Like, like it's high performing, but next level high performance. And
Yeah.
but then it doesn't, it's not sustainable, is like what you're saying, right? In terms of, you can do it only for so long, and then there comes a point, like you mentioned, you hadn't been out for dinner once in 2 years, besides with the Prime Minister. And you
Yeah.
start to look around, and I don't know if this happened to you, but you start to look around and you think to yourself, there's more to life than this. Like, it's I don't know, like I think that there's also an element there where you as much as you're loving this, and I think energetically you and I are vibing and connecting, because like it's
Well, people used to say to me, they used to say, "Oh, you've got to have a balanced life."
I don't believe in
And
balance.
and you're obsessed. And I used to say to them, show me anyone that's achieved anything worthwhile in their life, and I'll show you a obsessed person that doesn't live a balanced life. And they would nod and go, yeah, that's right. And so a lot of the high people, I just have a normal life. What, sit on the couch and watch TV? It's like, that just, there was a sense, and I don't know if it's healthy, but so there was a sense when I was that fit that, the sea of humanity was there and you were on another level. And it's one of the things, I know the podcast talks about flow, and there are times in business where I've had really great flow, and I've had flow in my writing and flow in what I do, but it's usually, it's backed by, there's no self-doubt and flow.
Yeah.
And where does self-doubt come from? Well, it possibly is because you haven't put the work in, and one of the other things that if you meet top athletes, and there's this word arrogance, and it's like, the difference between arrogance and confidence is, with confidence you've got the goods to back it up. And so you walk up to a top athlete, you just stand there and you can feel the vibes off them, that they are on the top of their game, and they are so confident. All the self-doubt's gone because they put in the hard work, and they know. And that's one of the things that Ironman teaches you. By the time you get to that start line and you've got your toes in the water, you've either done the work or you haven't.
Yeah.
And the flow will happen or it won't.
Yeah.
And so I think the same in business. And I think that self-doubt is a crippler to allowing natural flow to happen.
Oh, I could not agree more. Like, I couldn't agree more with you. In terms of that point on balance, I don't believe in the word balance either. I don't think it's life and then there's work, or life and business. I think they integrate together. Like, it's a life work flow piece for me, or a life business piece, right? In terms of where I was going was in terms of ensuring that as a high performer, you still have that active recovery, right? Like, as a top athlete, you couldn't run marathons 100, like what is it? Well, some people do. There's that guy 365 days of the year. There's still just that need, and I think sometimes as high performers, we can get caught up in the dark side of flow where, like, I don't know about you, but some days I'll be in such a flow in my business or whatever I'm doing. And the next thing I'm like, whoa, there's
Oh
like
yeah,
six
yeah.
hours gone and I haven't
It's
eaten. I haven't done
well,
it.
it's classic overtraining, and
Yes.
and overtraining. And then what happens with overtraining, and I've seen it in lots of athletes. And well, in fact, here's something for you, B, because when I worked and I trained, I used to say, if I could have 4 more hours in a day, I would use it all for sleeping. And that's how I felt, because I was constantly tired. But what I said to myself, there was no such thing as overtraining. There was being under-rested. And simply you were packing too much into your life that you couldn't get enough rest.
Mm.
And if you look at it that way, then you can make some adjustments and go, like, say, for example, as a triathlete, a day off is not mowing the lawns. You know what I mean? You got to stay off your legs.
Yes, rest.
And I try, even these days, I try to have a complete day off the computer, off screens a week.
Yeah.
And because I need to rest my brain, because my brain has been looking at these screens too long. And so those sorts of disciplines come in. And if you don't have that day off the screen, you know that your performance in the next week is going to be crap.
Yeah. I love that. And what's your day? Which day? Because I was talking to somebody else about this. What day is your day off?
Usually Saturday.
Same. It's
Yeah,
cool because
usually Saturday.
someone was saying to me the other day Sunday, and I was like, no, Saturday. It's Saturday for me because that kind of is my, I don't know.
Yeah,
It comes. I hit Friday end of day, and I'm
yeah,
like, Saturday is the day that I refuse. I
yeah.
computers down. I just don't want to go.
Friday night, I try and do something fun. Um, I didn't drink alcohol and still don't. It's just a habit of being an athlete. Just don't drink alcohol. But Friday night, I try and do something completely fun and relaxing and out of my ordinary, and just, like, it's a luxury Friday night. And Saturday, I try and have it off the screen, because the screen time at me is as bad as running all those miles years ago.
Mm.
The screen time, that will slow your brain down, and that's ultimately going to kill your flow.
Yeah, and it almost feels like it's sucking the life out of you because you can't
Yes.
get the clarity, you can't get the ideas, your effort, it's efforting versus
Yeah.
being effortless.
Yeah.
I want to come back to when you booked in for the pod or the show and you answer this question around one unique or insight around life leadership or business. And it's coming back into, I guess, what you mentioned pre-show, which was around this clean economy, so the decarbonisation. But I just loved the way you answered it. because it was
Uh,
like it kept me curious. Like I was like, what does
yeah.
he mean by that? I kind of think I know what he means, but I'm kind of keen to chat about it. So you said I'm trying to shift the dial in decarbonizing industry by putting the people who want to do something with the something.
Yeah.
And we've gone around and talked a lot about various different things, but I'd love for you to really elaborate on the people who want to do something with the something because
Okay.
it's really
So, so,
interesting.
so first of all, I've got to credit that statement to a friend of mine, Brendan Downey. And Brendan's a very successful, he was a champion triathlete. He was younger than me. He was one of the young bucks coming up. Tragic back injury cut his career short, but he was, he was Olympic level.
Yeah, I've
And
heard the name.
yeah, but he runs events on the Gold Coast So he runs
Yeah.
and he runs marathons too, and he might even run events in Melbourne. So so Brendan actually said that I was telling him what I was trying to do, and he said, "So Geoff, you're telling me you want to put the people who want to do something with the something?" And I said, "Yes." And so and I said, "I'm going to borrow that off him." So I credit him for that. And this is also great lesson about even when people are in flow and talking to people. It's a lesson that talk to anyone who will listen because every bit of feedback you get helps. It helps shape the final form. And just by telling him what I was trying to do, he simplified it for me, which is a lesson in itself. And what that means is that when I saw these people struggling to get their tech out there and it not being adopted, is I thought that I could help speed up the transition by putting the something, how to decarbonize, with the people who wanted to do it, because there's a fight. It's getting less and less now, but we still saw it in the Australian election. There's a fight
Yeah.
between the deniers. People say, "Oh, we shouldn't do anything. We should just burn fossil fuels," and and the people who know we've got to do something and trying to do it. Don't waste your time bashing your head against trying to convince the people who don't want to be convinced that we've got to change. Just go and talk to the people who want to change. There's lots of them out there.
Yeah.
And if you put your products in front of them, and this is the other thing about marketing, you would have found this. Sometimes I look at something and I say, this is not a dumb idea. It's not a dumb product. If you put this product in front of people, it's certain people, they'll want to buy it. They'll buy it because they look at it and go, "Oh, it's great. I just needed that." And so that was what I was trying to do in this space, because I saw a disconnect between the people actually wanting to do something and the something. Now, in that space, since I came out with that term, we've had the Electrify Everything show in Australia go huge, which is great. Congratulations to them. And we've got these home shows now, solar and battery home shows. By the way, in the month of July, Australia installed 1,000 home batteries a day.
Wow. I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
That's
because of the federal, the government subsidy. So we got things are going at a much faster pace, but that's what I set out to do, and it's interesting because, as I said, I didn't set out to make a conference series, and so if I can find a better way of doing it, well, why not do it that way?
Well, yeah, totally. And that's the formless for me. That's the ability to it's like water. It shapes and reshapes. It goes into certain areas and then it's like bang, here it go. That's where goes. And so for me,
Yes,
and I think you've got to allow things to it's like there's something with the something, right? You've got to allow things to shape in a way that they're meant to shape without us trying to hold on and control it, because for society and the way we've always been conditioned in business and in life is like, well, it's A to B, but this is now non-linear what we're talking about here. And quite often when we are more curious and we are exploring, and like you say, we're having the human conversations, connecting with humans who are interested and want to do the change, we ultimately always get to a better result. Where you're kind of like, it's almost like, oh, this is possible. Like, what's possible here? Do you know what I mean? Like, this is where I think that the world needs more of it.
Yes. And look, with AI coming on,
Mm.
people like you and I think we're going to be
Oh, I've lost you.
valuers.
I just lost you for a second then. Your sound.
Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. I was just going to say, am I back?
Yeah, you're back with AI coming on.
With AI coming on, people like you and we if we recognize the value that we bring, then we'll be okay. If we try and
Just lost you again.
is it going off again?
No, no, no. If we try, that's okay. If we try.
Okay. Okay. If we if we say I learned this at university, that's my background, that's my degree, AI can do that in a split second.
I know.
I gave you that we were chatted before. I gave you this example of a branding. I was trying to get some branding ideas for my own channel, and I put my channel into Chat GDP, and I said, you know, can you sum up this channel for me? And it did this job that I looked at it and I thought that would take me a week to do. And then I asked it another question and I thought that would take me another week to do. And then by the end I figured that's a month's work and just 3 or 4 questions, and I couldn't fault it. I got exactly what I
Yeah,
wanted
I know.
at, and I know I looked at it. I rang one of my ex staff members up, who I still talk to, and I said, "That's a $40,000 job. That's what we would have charged $40,000 for in 2010." She said, "Exactly." And it was like, oh, if you were in branding and you were and that's what that sort of thing that you were selling, that you would give them on a piece of paper was all you were selling, you were in trouble. Um, but to just to get the ideas on a paper and to implement them in real life that involves people like you know that if you want to change people, that's a human process.
100%. Yeah, I could not agree more. And we talked before the show that, like the role, like the skills roles between now and 2030, it's that critical problem solving, it's that resilience, it's creativity, it's there's all these others, but it's like that's the human aspect is not going away. It's exactly what you're saying. It's just
Yes,
how do you leverage
yes.
AI for productivity, efficiency? One thing I will say yesterday, right? I was using it for something, and I thought I was in one channel, and then I went, I'm gonna just throw this in another channel and see if I get exactly the same answer. And it was like they were different answers, and I was like, oh, okay, interesting. It was just kind of a little thing
Oh, it can give you a wrong steer. It can
yeah,
be wrong. And look, I catch it occasionally on things. I'll ask it something and I go, yeah, but that doesn't sound right. And I say, oh, yes, you're right. It's not right. Yeah, it's like, so it's as good as the person asking the questions. And if you shaped your question a bit better, you might have got a different answer.
yes,
So, but what I'm saying is that it's certainly, I went to school in the 70s. So here's another example. That's a long time ago. But back in the
I was
70s,
born in 70s, 77.
right? Okay. Oh God, this must be a really, really great filter on this lens. Uh, you don't look that old at
I'm
all.
48 next. I'm 48 next week.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
God, I thought I was talking to a 23-year-old.
No, God, no, no.
Okay. So, and back in school in the 70s, and they said we were going to work 3 days a week because robots were going to do everything. And the only thing that happened between the 70s and the 2000s was white collar workers went from working 38 hours a week to working 42 hours a week.
Mm.
So we were just working harder. We actually never got productivity gains from computerization.
Mm.
Now, all of a sudden, you're
We're
going to
getting no
see
gains.
like the world change. There's going to be entire careers gone,
Mm.
just
You can
gone.
already see it though, can't you? Like you can already see it. And that's why like you said earlier, and I know we're gonna wrap this up, but you said earlier, like you're old, you're not old. It's just like you're constantly, and I'm all about this, like it's lifelong learning, it's lifelong growth, it's lifelong iterating, shaping, reshaping. That's what we're about as humans. That's what we
Yeah,
need to be about. But because if we think that we can just stay the way we've always been and expect growth, expect change or whatever, it's just not going to happen. The world is in such a huge evolution right now. We either embrace it, and yes, there's elements that are a little bit concerning or worry, or we don't. But I think
Yeah.
that's the choice. Like, what do you do? You know?
Yes. And look, years ago, I gave a speech and launched, it was a website actually for a region, Southland in New Zealand. And they asked me to give this speech, and but they just got this website up and running. It's like, okay, everyone's done that. And I said to them, and I gave the speech called "I Have a Device in My Pocket," and this was a question that went around the internet about 2010 when YouTube came out, and what it said, and I'm going to get to the information bit in a minute, so you can follow me. And the meme that sort of went around was, I have what's the hardest thing to explain to an alien if they landed on Earth? And, some people would say golf courses and golf, and it was, I have a device in my pocket. It can access the sum total of human knowledge. And I use it to look at videos of cats and to get into arguments with people I don't know. And that statement rings true because of information overload. So, the reason why we watch cat videos, and I'm as guilty as the rest, I love cats. I've got a cat, so I watch cat videos. The reason we watch cat videos is because there's too much information coming at us.
Yeah,
and 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 hence I think the personal touch of a conversation, of what I'm trying to do with an interview, rather than reading somebody's website or watching some corporate video or a PowerPoint presentation, to have somebody explain in person what the advantages of their vertical access wind turbines is going to be. But humans are still going to watch other humans.
I agree. I love it. I love that so much. Oh my God, Geoff, we could talk for hours. We could get into an overtraining,
Yes.
long form
And
conversation.
by the way, there are only be two of us left. No one's watching.
I don't know about that. Tell me, can you just give me what's your one wise word? Like, what's your one piece of advice for today?
Believe you can change the world.
Mm.
I mean, that's the one thing I'd like. I grew up with the sense that, and that I could change the world, and I went out and I did in the areas that that I was specializing in, and I think if I could give that to my kids, and they believe, instead of believing that the world is just run by big corporations and politicians, and they can't change anything, and they're a passenger headed on a train headed for doom, believe you can change that. And in sustainability terms, you can. If the number one thing you can do as an individual out there is to change your superannuation savings to a fund that doesn't invest in fossil fuels. And if everyone did that in the world tomorrow, we'd change the world. And so that'd be the most effective thing that you can do, and you can do it today.
Love it. How do we find out more about you, Geoff? Obviously, your YouTube, SIM-PAC Live.
Yeah, and also a website, SIM-PAC. It's sim-pac.live.
Yeah, and LinkedIn, obviously, as well.
Yeah, LinkedIn, Geoff Matthews on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've thoroughly enjoyed our chat today. We've been in a huge amount of flow state. So thank you so much for coming on, and yeah, have a great rest of the day.
Wonderful. Thanks, Bee, and good luck to you. And look, anytime.
Thank you.